Alright, today we're going to be talking about the Ford, Chevy, Dodge four-wheel drive systems, how they work, when to use them, and what's the best way to get the most out of your four-wheel drive system. We're going to talk about the two main types of four-wheel drive systems on pickup trucks, the pros and cons to each of them. First of all, we have a Ford, Chevy, Dodge. That's what we're going to cover today. Ford and Dodge are real similar systems. They both have solid front axle. And this front axle is really good for carrying large amounts of weight safely. So if you look underneath, here is your solid front axle. Again, on Ford and Dodge, both have this type of setup on their 3/4 ton trucks. If you look over here, you can see the U-joint setup. This is the way front axles are done. Solid front axle systems are done on Ford and Dodge. You can see this U-joint here. This is a very strong system that is used in heavy-duty scenarios. You might see this also on forklifts and other four-wheel steer, four-wheel drive, off-road construction equipment. The pluses to this system is that it's very strong and able to carry a lot of weight on this front axle and still have a four-wheel drive unit here. The minuses to this system are turning on dry surfaces where you have a lot of traction. These systems can bind up and cause the steering wheel to jerk back and forth rapidly. Chevy uses a CV joint system. The downfall to this system is that the CV shaft is inherently weak. If you watch any of Whistling Diesel's videos, I'm sure you've seen him break multiple CV shafts on Chevys doing various off-road things. So this system is a little more forgiving when turning on pavement and making sharp turns in four-wheel drive. However, it sacrifices strength to achieve this. Alright, so here's your Ford and Dodge setup, U-joint. So, as in my picture, when you're using this system, you have to be a little bit more conscientious about it than a CV system. These are always engaged at the tire. The CV shaft is always connected to the tire on these types of Chevy four-wheel drive systems. With the U-joint system, a lot of times on Fords, they have a locking hub. This allows you to disconnect from the shaft, so this shaft is no longer connected to this tire. That way this tire can spin freely without spinning this shaft and spinning the four-wheel drive and the ring gear inside the differential. U-joint setups aren't really made for highway speeds. They've allowed you to disconnect the wheel. So anytime I'm going on a highway, I disconnect this wheel so that none of this is spinning needlessly. If I have to travel up a highway to another job site to plow or something like that, you want to disconnect that. On the Dodge setups, they don't have disconnectable U-joints from the tire. They don't have manual locking hubs. This is always engaged. I prefer being able to disconnect the tire from the U-joint setup while I'm traveling on highway speeds. I think it increases fuel mileage and wear and tear on the front system. So Ford is my choice for four-wheel drive. There's no disconnect at the hub, so the CV shaft is always spinning on these as well. Cars and other SUVs use this setup, and it can take highway speeds and not reduce fuel consumption quite as bad, but you're still spinning this system, and it's not exactly ideal to be moving parts that don't really need to be seen wear and movement. Ford, Dodge, and Chevy all have four-wheel drive disconnects at the transfer case. When I'm turning sharply on dry pavement or any chance where I don't need four-wheel drive, I put my four-wheel drive system in two-wheel drive to make the turn, to reduce the binding of this shaft. Obviously, if you're on ice or a certain circumstance where you have to have four-wheel drive, go ahead and make the turn. But if you're in that case, the tire will slip just enough to not bind the system up, and the steering wheel won't jerk if you're on actual ice or snow. But if you're on dry pavement, you want to switch to two-wheel low to turn this wheel sharply to make turns, if you can, if you know you don't need four-wheel drive. Otherwise, if you're in a pure ice situation, you might just have to use four-wheel drive all the time. But if you're on areas of asphalt and things like that, where you can get by without four-wheel drive by feathering the gas and not giving the vehicle too much tire rotation speed, then you can get away with two-wheel drive in a lot of circumstances, and that'll save on binding and excessive wear on this. So basically, if I'm somewhere where I know I might need four-wheel drive, I lock my hub in. That way I don't have to get back out of the vehicle to lock that in later. I leave that locked in. And then I basically float in and out of two and four-wheel drive depending on what the road is and what I'm actually doing. If I'm trying to turn around and I know I don't need it, two-wheel drive. Even in a Chevy pickup truck, you're going to want to switch to two-wheel drive to make tight turns on asphalt. You never want to make tight turns on dry pavement in four-wheel drive. Obviously in the mud or off-road situations, you're going to have to just make a judgment call on if four-wheel drive is a necessity or not. But more often than not, if I can do two-wheel drive and not spin, I like to run two-wheel drive as much as possible. If you're in icy conditions, then you pretty much have to use four-wheel drive. Alright, so closing arguments on these two different systems. The CV joint is a more modern, more user-friendly four-wheel drive. It uses ball bearings instead of needle bearings and is able to go through range of motion while turning better than a U-joint. For the long story short of it, the CV joint is better. But what backs this up is CV joints have an A-arm suspension with ball joint, joint, and they use A-arms, typically with a coil spring setup, as opposed to the solid front axle, which is what you see in your dump trucks, your semi-trucks. It's stronger. This will give you a better ride and is more user-friendly. But for hauling heavy amounts of weight like snow plows, as long as you follow these rules with taking it in and out of four-wheel drive and disconnecting this hub whenever you can get more life out of your U-joints and use this setup, and in the long haul you're going to be better off carrying more weight, especially if you're running wings and these big huge plows that these trucks have these days weigh upwards of 1,000 pounds. You're better off having a solid front axle to carry that weight. The U-joints are just, the ball joints are going to be beefier, and in general, I mean, they do use this setup in Hummer H1s, so it is can be a very dependable system as well. I guess it just comes down to user preferences on which you prefer. They both have their quirks and benefits. But taking it in and out of four-wheel drive is going to save on these systems both substantially. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Catch us in the next one. Please like, subscribe, doesn't cost you anything. Let's go over a lot of different user topics like this that can save you money and get the most out of your equipment. Alright, tune in next time. Thanks for watching.